Meet you. So I'm David. So I'm going to go ahead and just begin here. Okay. So it's raining cats and dogs. Please take a look at this. If the lights here in the front can go off, can you turn off the lights in the front? Thank you. Okay. It's raining cats and dogs. Very famous American saying or metaphor. When read as a literal sentence, it doesn't make sense as you picture cats and dogs falling from the sky. Right? How ridiculous. This is not what we mean when we say it's raining cats and dogs, right? What we mean, when we seen as a metaphor, the sentence becomes clear. Colorful, imaginative, meaning it's raining very hard, like cats and dogs. Not the literal meaning, the metaphor. So this is what we mean. It's raining hard, right? Obvious. Now, being able to understand metaphor gives you a new power that can boost self-esteem and help you find your bliss in life. For those of you, if English is a second language, bliss means destiny, right? Okay. Now, from Moby Dick to Star Wars to the Matrix to Men in Black to the Bible, there are many metaphors to be found. Okay. I will play clips of a documentary and show photographs in order to help you or help me discuss many of these metaphors in order to shed light on a subject that is oftentimes controversial or taboo. Now, let's begin with Carl Jung. Carl Jung was a Swiss psychologist and psychiatrist who founded analytical psychology. Analytical psychology is the study of the mind. That's it. He came up with the concept of archetype, which is a universal symbol in our dreams. For example, in the primal days of man, where the environment was more wilderness than concrete, water and snakes were archetypal images in our dreams. For example, this painter here did a good example of maybe expressing a particular kind of dream. Now, in this kind of water dream, it can oftentimes represent a kind of unconscious emotion or feeling or something deep inside us to evoke a particular emotion that might mimic what's going on emotionally with you at the time. Maybe you feel bogged down with work and you don't feel fulfilled emotionally or spiritually, or you feel your personal life is being interrupted by busy tasks that don't mean much to you in the end. Maybe that's what this painter is saying. And if this image was a dream you were having, perhaps you wake up and think about this dream and come to the same conclusion. This is, after all, what the Native American Indians believed. They took their dreams very seriously. They believed the gods spoke to them in their dreams. Painters, on the whole, are very aware of this. The good painters, right? Like the painter of this painting, he or she was able to capture a subconscious image of what I'm talking about in a very creative way. Painters or artists, I believe, are the shamans of modern times. So yes, we still dream old archetypal images. But now with the new environment of streetlights, and shopping malls and all these walls around us, and rules and science and vaccines and dental care. We have new archetypal images that are entering into our dreams, like the alien image of the narrow head with the strange skin color and black oval eyes, like the eyes of an unemotional insect. Right? This is a new archetypal image that's popping up in our dreams now. And if, let's say, the gods do speak to us in our dreams, as the Native Indians believe, or if you feel more comfortable thinking of this, if you feel more comfortable thinking of this in terms of God speaking to us in our dreams, what are these dreams trying to say? Like this dream that of the alien, what's going on? Well, perhaps what's being said here, let's say in a more psychological way of thinking, the dream is the voice of our instinct. Then perhaps this image is telling us that we've separated ourselves so far from nature, so separated ourselves so much from Mother Nature and the wilderness of our arms, building all these streets and malls and cities, and studying insects and animals, and using microscopes and laboratories that don't have a single plant in sight, that we've become the alien ourselves. And we're on a mission without consciously knowing it to destroy ourselves and humanity and building the ultimate spaceship that could potentially ruin us all. But we must stay positive, right? Okay. So, we have to fight and be strong and try to be happy, as much as we can. I understand, of course, right? But part of this fight to be happy is by using the weapons given to us by God, I guess. I can't think of a better word. And if we understand metaphor and know that it's vital in protecting ourselves and in the possible future of oppression and destruction, we'll realize we actually have that to our advantage. So, after all, right now the world is facing some very serious problems, some very serious things, right? We have basically an imperialist agenda, I think, coming from America. America right now is in all kinds of different countries. I can't even name how many countries America is in. Okay? Now, I know many people think America is this great country, and it is, but the problem with the United States is that it's now being run by bankers. So the agenda of the bankers is not for you, right? So they want you to support the war on terror. This is definitely a problem. And we might eventually see these things like this more often. Or maybe this. Now, Germany's Holocaust was only 75 years ago. 75 years ago. That's not a long time ago. Now, some people think it's impossible for America to become something like this. Nothing's impossible. If it happened in history, it's not impossible. And I'm sorry to say, but things that are going on in America are leading to this kind of tyranny. If you understood what's going on in America. Now, I'm showing some pretty serious photos here because I want to make it clear that the destruction of metaphor, as crazy as this might sound, can lead to this kind of oppression and genocide. Okay? So the destruction of metaphor can lead to this. And I'll explain it. But first I want to make it clear that metaphor is still alive. And we can see it in things like Batman, Men in Black. A metaphor is definitely alive. And young people flock to this metaphor because they understand it. It speaks to them. But there is an unconscious ignorance revolving around metaphor in today's world. Particularly when we're talking about the Bible. Now, I understand this is a controversial topic. And I don't want to, step on anyone's faith. But, this is my lecture. So you're going to hear what I think about it. Okay? Now, in order to explain what I'm talking about, let's go all the way to Roman times. Okay? In order to understand what's going on with metaphor, we have to go back to Roman times. So here we are, like time travelers, sitting in a Colosseum of ancient Rome and watching gladiators fight to the death. Now, this picture doesn't have that much significance to metaphor. I understand. But it does show you the time period when metaphor began losing its power. Okay? And why it no longer is taken seriously in today's world. Mostly, of course, by educational institutions. It is known that the Romans, once they conquered the Greeks, borrowed much of Greek mythology and turned it into their own. For example, the mythology of Cupid became Eros, right? And there's Cupid shooting Eros as a metaphor of my own. Okay? Now, the Roman god of love, Cupid, took over the Greek god of love here, Eros. As if Cupid literally shot Eros, right? Now, you might have heard more about Cupid because, Rome is obviously, it went on for a long time. Okay? People know more about Rome. So we hear more about Cupid. So we're talking about 400 years, right? Now, Christianity started to show up around this time. It became popular. It was a slow process, and it didn't take all of that time. It took 4 centuries, which is 400 years. Okay? And in those 4 centuries, Roman leaders, instead of using pagan figures and Roman deities, like Medusa, to frighten and control the masses, they figured out a way to use Christianity for this purpose, to scare the masses, coming up with a great plan of getting citizens to believe that a man like Christ really existed. And instead of using mythological characters like Medusa and scare you into doing exactly what they wanted, they used the idea of hell to scare you into believing this story. If you didn't believe in Christ and the story of Christ, then you'd burn in hell for eternity. Well, that fear tactic worked, right? People believed it, particularly because if you opposed Christianity, you were a sinner, or you were put to death, or you were banished. They forced people to believe in Christianity. They did not just say, okay, whatever you want to believe. The reason why we have Christianity all over the world now is because of Rome. Rome was huge. Okay. Roman leaders had specifically devised this fear tactic to terrify the masses, which, by the way, means the majority of people. I don't know if you noticed, but masses is the majority of people. And they terrified them into trusting these power-hungry individuals in charge of Rome, and the churches in order to save their souls from hell, right? So Christianity progressed under an almost unbroken succession of Christian emperors until it became the official religion of the Roman Empire, while the Church of Rome seized the power and began to dictate which scriptures were from God and which ones would be burned in the fire. Now, Roman Christian leaders saw everyone who opposed Christianity as an enemy because they wanted the masses to remain unenlightened. Stupid, right? They wanted to be stupid. And in fear of God, and believing that God chose these leaders to be the rulers of the land, right? Okay. Now they devised a system of churches as places of worship and gave these churches the power to brainwash people's minds and convince them of the literal text and not the metaphorical ones. This was the birth of the thought police. People go to church, instead of understanding the metaphor, they actually believe that it's raining cats and dogs. That's how ridiculous it is. Sorry, that's my opinion. So this was the birth of the thought police and the slow decay of metaphor, which has lasted to this very day. What helped the slow decay of metaphor from the lives of common people like you and me was what happened during the Dionysian festivals of Greece. Now the Dionysian festivals, they got together and they celebrated life. It started with Greece. Greece is the one that started the Dionysian festivals. But when Rome conquered Greece, they continued this festival. Okay? But something changed in the festival. There were some very serious changes, and the most serious change was that the Roman Empire no longer allowed a particular drink to be used in the Dionysian festival. This drink was considered a magical drink. It gave a hallucinogenic value to the drink. I don't know if any of you have ever tried hallucinogenics. I have. It's the most spiritual experience I've ever had in my life. They took this out of the drink and left the wheat. They left alcohol. So the only thing left in this drink was alcohol, which is what we have today. Alcohol is now the drink that the masses use ever since this time. Now, when they drank this drink during the festival, they felt very spiritually enlightened. But now, we no longer have this magical potion in the drink. We just have alcohol, and basically this is what we have for enlightenment. Notice the brain is in the bowl. Okay. There would be no spiritual awakening on this drink. That was clear. So, as you can see, there was a conscious effort to destroy wisdom and metaphor in order to control you. But it doesn't have to be this way, right? If you choose to open your third eye You open your third eye. Maybe Christian goers. I don't know. Some people, they don't like this subject. They're like, oh, that's it. I don't know. Maybe he has to go somewhere to meet a girl. I don't know. But if you choose to open your ears and not close your ears, open your third eye, you can be enlightened like this guy here. All right. Now, during the Roman festivals, I told you about this. Let me go to this point. Obviously, you can guess that that I'm not Christian. But the crazy part is I actually am Christian. I'm a Gnostic Christian. That means that I like the Christian story, but I choose not to see it as a literal text. I think it's a beautiful story, metaphor. I think it's a beautiful metaphor. So I'm a Gnostic Christian. There are many stories that I read, though. It's not just the Bible. I have many, many books that I read. Okay. Now again, I'm not trying to take away your faith. If you're a Christian, I'm not trying to disturb you. Okay? I'm just trying to help you see the way I see faith. Okay? Because if you don't embrace wisdom, then you're going to fall victim to basically what the Romans wanted thousands of years ago. And believe me, the current leadership and governments are fully aware of how to control you. Okay? Governments study other governments. They study over centuries, thousands of centuries. They know how to control people. Now, I tell you I'm a Gnostic Christian. This is an example. Gnostic Christians understood what the Roman leaders were doing, and they did not accept this new story of Christ as a literal story. They believed that the Bible was a beautiful allegory, which means metaphor. And they were the ones who risked being killed or crucified. But they learned to hide themselves very well. Obviously, it's not easy to hide when you're dealing with, a tyrannical government that does everything it can to control you. Now, one man who did not believe that the Bible was a literal text was, basically with these slides, I'm showing you that governments know how to control you, and they want to control you, okay? Most governments become too greedy and too powerful, and they want to control the masses, and they want drones like this. They don't want individual thinkers, okay? The situation with classrooms in today, the education setup where you have a classroom and you have students here and desks, that whole setup started during Roman times. That whole setup. It became very popular during the Christian teaching, mostly in America. Christian teaching based upon the Bible. So it's a very old way of teaching people, and they basically want drones. They don't want individual thinkers. They just want you to be like a robot. So, is this what you want? You want a planet like this? Basically a machine robot? So if not, let's focus on metaphors, that I'm talking about mostly, in the Bible. And people who are unable to see metaphor, particularly in the Bible, oftentimes go back to the kind of fairy tale land of childhood and make-believe, such as Santa Claus. I'm not really sure why so many people get so scared of seeing things as a metaphor, but really it's like believing that Santa Claus was real. It's as simple as that. So when people talk to me about the Bible and all this stuff, this is what I see. Which is, by the way, also a very interesting metaphor. If you did the research, you realize that Santa Claus is a metaphor, and a very interesting one. But I don't want to get sidetracked. You can go to this fairy tale land for many reasons. People do. But the biggest reason is to not feel left out, because people believe the Bible is a literal text. So people don't want to feel lonely. They don't want people to think that they are against what they believe. Now, one man who didn't buy into this and was able to see the metaphor clearly was a man called Joseph Campbell. Now, if you don't know Joseph Campbell, you should. Joseph Campbell is very, very popular in America. Okay. Now, he taught mythology for 25 some odd years, I think. And instead of getting his PhD, he moved into the woods and collected mythology from all over the world. And he realized it all had similar patterns and images. Using Jung's teaching on dreams and archetypes, he realized that mythology was really the dream put into words on paper. And these dreams were saying very similar things to the Bible. Even though the characters and symbols might have been different, they were still the same stories being told for the same reasons. Every religion is true when seen metaphorically. Joseph Campbell said that. Okay, this guy's either falling asleep. Okay. Try not to fall asleep, not because I care, but because this is exactly what I'm talking about. Everyone falls asleep. This is probably, if you've never seen this before, it's probably one of the most important sayings you'll ever hear in your life. And if you fall asleep during this, it tells me where you're at. Every religion is true when seen metaphorically. Now, after reading his books, Joseph Campbell, particularly The Power of Myth, my fear of religion instantly went away. And I was able to read the Bible metaphorically and see movies and stories of the modern age in an entirely new way of thinking. It helped me understand the world around me and even the world within myself. Now, Campbell believed that Christ was merely a mythological character, created to represent the soul, the Son of God. You, in other words. Find the Christ in you. Joseph Campbell wrote that. So let's get into some examples of these metaphors. Right? Take, for instance, the story of Christ walking on water. No one can walk on water. Right? I think we all know this. I hope to God you understand this. No one can walk on water. You understand? Okay. So, it's a miracle is just too easy to suspend disbelief. What people who believe in miracles don't realize is that Christ walking on water is really a metaphor. It's a metaphor for having faith that things are going to work out in your life. Even if you think they're not, even if all the odds are against you, don't lose hope, right? Have faith. It's going to be all right. It's going to be like walking on water. Now, here's another example of metaphor. Take, for example, the novel Moby Dick. And I don't know if any of you have read Moby Dick. It's a very hard book to read. It's not easy, but it is a very powerful metaphor if you understand the metaphor. So I'm going to go into this very quickly. If you read Moby Dick as a literal text, it's a story about a whale. You're going to miss the story altogether. You're going to miss the metaphor. Now, if you understand it as its metaphorical value, you'll realize that it's a story about the soul and the questions you might have about the universe. Moby Dick, after all, the mysterious whale, represents existence itself. And Captain Ahab, curious beyond rationality, tries to capture this whale, tries to find the answers to the universe. Well, by continuing his search for these answers, Captain Ahab loses his leg to the whale. And at the end of the story, he harpoons the whale and gets his leg caught in the rope as the whale swims downward and takes Ahab with him into the deep. It's an incredible metaphor, talking about the human mind and how it's just not capable of knowing the ultimate answers to existence. What is existence? What it is? How big it is? It just is. So relax. It just is. Take it easy. Your mind is not capable of understanding how big it is. The universe is too big. God is too big for the human mind to understand. Don't be like Captain Ahab. It didn't turn out so well for Captain Ahab. As you can see, he did not give up trying to find the answers, and the whale took him under into the deep, and he lost his mind. He wasn't so lucky, right? Now, the Bible, of course, has many more metaphors. Have you ever felt so depressed and so down on life that you felt like you were dying and there was no hope? And then one day you looked at the world and your problems in an entirely different way. And suddenly you felt like Christ, risen from the grave. That's because that story is a great metaphor for this exact feeling. A kind of soul rebirth. I don't know if you've experienced this before. I certainly have. I tend to think that every single one of you has experienced this metaphor in your life. You've been so depressed and so down, you think life is over. It's like you died. But you come back to life and you see things in a new way. Now, the metaphor of Noah saving all those animals in the flood by putting all the animals in the ark. Okay, you know this metaphor? If you take this in a literal way, actually putting all the animals of the entire world and all the insects and everything into one small boat is completely ridiculous. Okay, I hope you understand. Because it's a metaphor. It's similar to the rising from the grave. Let's say you're having a very difficult time in life, and it feels like a flood is going to take over your world. So you grab everything that is important to you, and you put them into the ark. The ark is you. You You put all the living things that's important to you into your ark. And you survive the flood that is taking over your life. And when it's over, you open the door, you land on the shore, you open the door to the ark, and you let all this life come back. You understand? Okay. It is obviously a kind of soul rebirth. Now, I don't know about you, but I've had days like that. I'm sure you have too. There are other interpretations of the Bible. Of course, I'm not telling you that my way of thinking of the Bible, of these metaphors, is the only way you should see these metaphors. The beauty of metaphor is that you can see whatever you like, as long as the metaphor gives you some kind of meaning, right? For example, Christ risen from the grave could also represent the sun, and when it disappears into the night. Okay? So when it's nighttime, it can also represent this very metaphor. And then, of course, when it rises in the morning. Or how about the Son of God, meaning the sun itself? Maybe Christ risen from the grave is maybe the sun rising from the night. There are many metaphors to understand in the Bible. Now, here is an example of something that's very interesting to me. The Son of God. The Son of God. It can also maybe represent the sun god. Have you ever thought of it this way? The sun god. I hope so. Notice the flames around his head. There are many paintings of the thorns that he wears as the sun flames. Because he's a metaphor, that's why. He's not a real person. That's my opinion. Okay? He represents the sun. He represents your soul. He represents metaphor. If you just understand that it's not raining cats and dogs. Now, this doesn't seem like such a leap, that he represents the sun. Because the Egyptians and the Romans worshiped the sun. They worshiped the sun. Can we play the Zeitgeist video, please? So this is an example here. We're going to have to put it on. It does say when. No. Yeah. You notice it says start 2 minutes, 52 seconds to film. It says it. I'm trying to prepare. I gave you before. There we go. Now start it in 2 minutes. It says it right there. Now this is an example from a film called Zeitgeist.
Broadly speaking, the story of Horus is as follows. Horus was born on December 25th of the Virgin Isis Mary. His birth was accompanied by a star in the east, which in turn 3 kings followed to locate an authority and savior. At the age of 12, he was a prodigal child teacher. At the age of 30, he was baptized by a figure known as Dannov, and thus began his ministry. Horus had 12 disciples he traveled about with, performing miracles such as healing the sick and walking on water. Horus was known by many gestural names such as the Truth, the Light, God's Anointed Son, the Good Shepherd, the Lamb of God, and many others. After being betrayed by Typhon, Horus was crucified, buried for 3 days, and thus resurrected.
Now it's showing you all the similarities.
Whether original or not, seem to permeate many cultures of the world, and many other gods are found that have the same general mythological structure. Attis of Phrygia, born of the Virgin Mama on December 25th, crucified, placed in a tomb, and after 3 days was resurrected.
Just like Christ.
Krishna of India, born of the Virgin Devaki, with a star in the east signaling his coming. He performed miracles with his disciples, and upon his death was resurrected. Dionysius of Greece, born of a virgin on December 25th, was a traveling teacher who performed miracles such as turning water into wine. He was referred to as the King of Kings, God's only begotten Son, the Alpha and Omega, and many others. And upon his death, he was resurrected. Mithra of Persia, born of a virgin on December 25th, he had 12 disciples who performed miracles, and upon his death was buried for 3 days and thus resurrected. He was also referred to as the Truth, the Light, and many others. Interestingly, the sacred day of worship with Mithra was Sunday. The fact of the matter is that there are numerous saviors from different periods from all over the world.
So you understand. Basically, I have that clip because I want you to understand that this is starting to become very well known in America. There are underground movements happening in America, and filmmakers are making films now. That was called Zeitgeist. It's describing some of the things I'm telling you about right now. There are many metaphors all over the world about different versions of Christ, but they're the same story. Okay. Now, this belief, by the way, the belief that Christ is a metaphor for the soul, isn't anything new. This has been around since the Gnostic Christians, as I mentioned before. But this kind of thinking has been buried for a very long time, and it's finally starting to be accepted again. The metaphor of Christ being an artist is my personal belief, and it's my favorite metaphor that I found in the Bible. Okay. Christ is, in a sense, the man willing to tell the truth despite the consequences. There's some very famous paintings created during the medieval times that represent how people react to Christ, or the Christ's character, for telling the truth. This particular painting strikes me as very meaningful. Now, if you see Christ as the guy telling the truth, the cross is the burden of having to tell the truth. He has to carry the cross. This is a burden to carry the cross, right? It's not easy to tell the truth to people who don't believe you. Now, you notice the expressions of the people in this painting. It's very interesting. Some people don't understand. He's pleading. Why? This girl here, she's very sad. These guys here, they're very upset. They don't like him. They're getting very angry. So it goes to show you how different people react to the truth. And painters and writers they understand the metaphor. They understand the myth. And this is what they're telling you in this story, in this painting. The Bible was written down by writers. Ooh, God wrote it down. Give me a break. Okay, writers wrote the Bible. Okay. Now, well, let's not go there yet. Now, the cross represents, like I told you, the burden. I went into all that. Maybe I am ready for the next PowerPoint. Yeah. So Star Wars, for example, is a classic hero's journey. In a sense, Luke Skywalker is the Christ figure. It's the same story. It's just told in a modern tale using new archetypes. Now, the reason why young people like Star Wars is because these archetypes, these modern archetypes, are being used in a very clever way. The director of Star Wars, George Lucas, was a big fan of Joseph Campbell, by the way. Big fan. He's admitted many times that without Joseph Campbell, he would not have wrote Star Wars. There's also the movie The Matrix, another very good story, the Christ story, the hero's journey of someone who understands the Enlightenment. And this situation is very good because it shows you the modern environment of how tyranny is trying to take over your individual rights and your soul. Thankfully, through diligent artists and maverick intellectuals like Campbell, the art of metaphor isn't entirely lost. We still have metaphor. It's very important to us. And even though people have been blinded by the literal text of the Bible, the message still is too powerful to be missed. And it continues to empower people like it might be right now. What people might not realize when they go to church is that the church, metaphorically speaking, is the world, the universe, and the temple that houses our existence. And the love they feel is God, yes, but not because they're in a man-made temple. They feel the presence of God because those metaphors are close at hand, waiting to be opened like a Christmas gift. And being together, feeling all that love for each other and bonding with those old primitive roots of tribal belonging is what gives them this feeling, which we all crave, particularly now that this belonging is under attack by a mechanical system that only cares about profit and its growing needs, reducing your choices to bond with this belonging to a family, to barbecues or the Super Bowl. Very small chances to feel like you belong in this environment now. So, in summary, I'd say we need as much help as we can get, and if metaphor is one of the weapons that can help protect us and keep us strong, then we better pass on this information and not be afraid to tell other people about it. Understanding metaphor and sharing this knowledge is one way, one path through the darkness. I don't know about you, but I'm heading toward the light. That's it.
The question and answer portion of the talk. If you have a question, please write it on the piece of paper that you picked up on your way in, and one of our GIC talk volunteers hold it up, and they will bring it up to me, and I will ask the question. So let's begin with some questions about your take on Christianity. You said that Christianity was used by the Romans, well, maybe by governments, starting with the Romans, to control people. Now that Christianity is fading in much of the West, do you see anything as replacing Christianity in that role of controlling the masses?
Well, I don't know who wrote that, but it is interesting. In my opinion, whoever wrote that has their thumb on the pulse of what's going on with religion right now. In America in particular, Christianity is starting to, the leadership in America, I believe, wants to get rid of Christianity. It is now at a point where the leaders in control of the world, the big bankers, they want to get rid of Christianity. Because even though people see things as a literal text, Christianity still has very powerful metaphorical value. And even though they might not know that it's a metaphor, it still represents good things. And the leadership in America does not want Christianity to become, to be the leading religion anymore, because it is affecting the way they want to govern people. Okay? So right now, Christianity, in my opinion, is starting to, the government is starting to pinpoint Christianity as a bad thing, because it's starting to get in the way of them being able to control people. So just like during that time in Rome, when Rome took over, they realized that they could no longer control people using metaphor, using the deities like Medusa and all those, and Zeus. They realized that now the same thing is going on, that Christianity is becoming a problem, and that people who believe in Christianity are not on the new way of thinking. I don't know if that helped.
So, staying on the topic of Christianity, in your opinion, is there any particular sect of Christianity that comes closest to viewing the Bible as metaphor?
Yeah, I mean, just what I already said. Gnostic Christians are those that believe that the Bible is a metaphorical text. Gnostic Christians. I am a Gnostic Christian. If you understand it metaphorically, so are you.
So kind of a big conceptual sort of question. What, in your opinion, do you see as the relationship between human reason, metaphor, myth, and religion? Where do you see the connections between those things? Or if that's too big?
Well, it's not too big. It's a little vague. But, I mean, all those things are connected. So, read the question again.
Sure. What, in your opinion, do you see as the relations between human reason, metaphor, myth, and religion?
The connection is very simple. Enlightenment is being able to use all the tools that you have to be able to see clearly. So, if metaphor is a weapon that you can use to help you see, then it connects to everything that he just mentioned.
So, that was my question though.
Yeah.
What I mean is everything is becoming about human reason, even metaphor or myth, and furthermore, religion is named by or aside of the human reason. So I could write the wrong sentence.
So what's your question?
Yeah, that was my question.
Okay, so what other question?
Yeah, so I mean the human reason is most important. So that was I wanted to ask.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Everything here today is about human reason. If you don't see the Bible as a metaphor, I don't think you're being reasonable.
Moving on to your discussion of the government. You often seem to refer to the government as something of a monolithic entity. When you talk about the government, do you often mean the U.S. government specifically, all governments? Can you give us some examples of how you conceptualize the government?
Well, I don't have a problem with government. Government is necessary, I think. I'm a teacher in a classroom. If there's going to be a classroom, someone needs to be in charge. If someone is not in charge of a classroom, it's going to be total chaos. Okay, I understand. I am not against government. I am against a government that wants to control people. When a government becomes too greedy and too powerful, all they care about is controlling you. That's the problem. Now, again, I don't have a problem with government, but when a government gets too greedy, that's the problem. Right now, we have a situation, we're facing a situation of maybe world government. I don't know if any of you have heard this before, but that's what's happening right now, is we are facing a world government. And if we are going to go into a world government, some people might think, whoa, that's a great thing. What's so bad about that? World government, great. Well, I think it's a terrible idea, because if you have a world government, you're going to have more tyranny. That's it. It's going to control you more. That's my opinion.
Okay. So we can move on to some sort of methodological question. One of the things you mentioned is that an individual is free to interpret a metaphor as he or she chooses. Someone asked the question of, can metaphors become almost empty or useless when people can interpret them however they choose?
That's a good question. I like that question. It's a good question, because let's say you're looking at a piece of art, and some people think art is subjective. Just because you think it's good doesn't mean that another person doesn't think it's bad. But you have to be careful with this type of thinking. If you look at a painting and it's just one line, it's just one line. Okay, sorry, but that's a piece of crap, in my opinion. It's just not going to work for me. It's not art. You're not telling me a goddamn thing. You're not telling me anything, right? So this person, another person might say, "Oh, it's amazing. It's telling me the simplicity of the world." Okay, I don't buy it. So, I think you have to make a decision based on your experience on what metaphor is going to work for you. Hopefully, those metaphors are powerful. But if you see a metaphor as something that's not the correct metaphor, it's completely, like, let's say walking on water, you think, okay, walking on water means that the fan is turned on too high. Okay, please, right? It's ridiculous.
Okay, we're down to our last question for the question and answer session. If your question did not get asked, please feel free to approach the speaker at the end of the talk. So our last question is, you identify yourself as a Gnostic Christian. How do you organize yourself as a Gnostic Christian, and how do you influence the world in a positive and organized way?
Just like this. I didn't have to organize you people here today. I didn't have to say this is what I'm going to do, but I did it out of the goodness of my heart. I'm not getting paid. I do this because I have information that I think is important, and I want to share this. So we all do what we can to try to share wisdom. This is my way of doing it. I have other ways. I'm a writer, by the way. You can check out my author website. I don't know if it's posted on the introduction You have it. Anybody who wants my website, you can get it from her, or just ask me and I'll give you my author website. Also, she has a piece of paper with about 10 internet addresses. Some are documentaries. Most of them are documentaries, and they're all very, very interesting. Now, they're very intense as well, so you better be prepared to watch some very controversial subjects. So hopefully that's one way to share.
All right. That's the end of our question and answer.